Good day class, welcome sa ating Module 5, The Self in Western and Eastern Thoughts, which is the last module para sa prelim. So I hope na-enjoy natin lahat ng mga discussions. So our objectives at the end of this module, compare and contrast individualism and collectivism. Identify various manifestations of individualistic and collectivistic cultures among Filipinos. Evaluate the philosophies according to their relevance to yourself. So class, the question here, do we exist for ourselves or for others? Do we live for self-realization and self-actualization? Or do we live for the common good? So in other words, if we say live for the common good is, do we live for the benefit of other people? Do we live for the benefit ng majority of the people? So this is how the Western and Eastern perspectives about the self differ. The West is self-oriented, while the East is others-oriented. The former values freedom and choice and wants to free itself from the bondage of society. Then the latter, relationships and social obligation, and look at the welfare of society. The former seeks to create its own identity, but the latter identifies within the group. So, mayroon tayong tinatawag dyan na individualism and collectivism. Okay? So, they attempt to determine the differences between the perspectives of the West and the East toward the self was carried out by social psychologists. They found out that in modernized countries, people grow more analytical and individualistic, while in developing nations like our country, people remain collectivistic. Individualism versus collectivism. Individualism is an orientation concerned with the independence and self-reliance of the individual. Individualistic cultures put more emphasis on promoting the individual and the immediate family's welfare. So, in other words, it is your belongingness to a small group. Okay? While collectivism is an orientation characterized by belongingness to a larger group or collective. So, it is in opposite with the individualism. Collectivistic cultures, on the other hand, give more importance to loyalty to the in-group, which in turn takes care of the individual's welfare, according to Huy and Triandis 1986. So let us take a look on the Western conception of the self is individualistic. It gives more emphasis on freedom and choice. An independent self that is free from the influence of culture. So pag sinabing individualistic, yung itong Western conception, you are free from the influence of culture and environment, and from the other expectations and welfare of society. So, ang Western conception next is it emphasizes the uniqueness of every individual and is predicated on egoism or self-orientedness. Next, it describes the self as existing and distinct from others. So, in other words, yung again, yung uniqueness, okay? Yung pagiging distinct mo or iba. Pagiging unique mo from other individual. That a human being has a self, is an individual, and is a person. It is your own. It has something to do with your own identity as a person. It gives more emphasis on individual goals. Okay, you have that individual goals and his or her journey towards self-realization or self-actualization. The self is free to express itself. So, you are free to express yourself. So, that's the Western conception of the self is individualistic. So, kung ang Western ay individualism, ang Eastern conception naman ay collectivistic. Again, pag sinabing collectivistic, your belongingness sa mas malaking society or grupo. So, it gives more importance on relationships, roles, duties, obligations, and the preservation of culture and tradition. So, the Eastern conception, it prioritizes the needs and goals of society, hindi lang ng individual. Okay? Kundi yung pangkalahatan over the needs and desires of every individual. So, it is founded on the belief that people are so socially connected. Okay? So, we have that connection, okay, with one another. Individual behavior is guided by adjustments to social demands and situations. It is others-oriented because it encourages people to be kind, benevolent, charitable, dependable, and sensitive to the needs of others. So, ang collectivistic, it promotes selflessness. Okay? Sacrifice for the welfare of society, para sa ikabubuti ng nakararami. Okay? And the performance of assigned roles. Ang collectivism stresses that individual has many selves. Okay? Instead of having a one knowable self. Self is viewed as part of a we instead of only a me. So again, to sum up this, it promotes ang collectivistic Eastern conception. It promotes yung tinatawag nating selflessness. Hindi pagiging makasarili, kundi iniisip mo yung kapakanan ng nakararami. So that's the Eastern conception of the self, which is collectivistic. So let us proceed to individualism. Ang individualism naman, class, it does not mean or it does not promote isolation. Okay? Kapag individualism, hindi naman ibig sabihin hindi ka na nakikipag-unite, hindi ka na nakikiisa sa ibang tao or sa ibang grupo. So it is grounded on the idea that an individual makes judgments, acts based on his or her own thoughts and disagrees with others. An individual has the capacity to consider his or her own best interests. So, in other words, we make judgment, we act based on our own volition, based on our own thoughts, based on our own will, and we have that capacity to disagree with others kung hindi ito akma sa ating pananaw bilang isang individual. Okay? Then we also have that capacity to consider din naman yung ibang opinion or idea ng ibang tao for our own best interests. So each can act based on his or her own volition. So, in other words, each and every one of us, we are able to act, okay, based on our own will or volition. and norms, and we can judge other people as good to form relationships or as bad to elude interaction. So, lahat tayo, we are free to decide whether to take part or not in solving societal problems. Like in our nation, we have that freedom to decide whether tayo ay makiisa sa isang sa pinaglalaban ng isang grupo or ng isang society. We have that freedom na makiisa or tumuligsa or hindi sumang-ayon, no? So that's individualism. We have that freedom to decide whether to take part or not in solving societal problems. While in collectivism class, it is an idea that man should live, think, and act towards certain goals that benefit the group. A group may be a family, a clan, community, nation, or the entire human race. So again, as I have said, collectivism is your belongingness sa malaking society, malaking grupo. Pwedeng yan ay yung family mo, yung clan mo, yung community mo, or our nation itself, or the entire human race. That's collectivism. So, a group is composed of individuals forming the so-called superorganism that is separated from other individuals. And individual decides according to the interests of the group. So, for example, you're in a certain organization. So, hindi lang ikaw yung nagdi-decide. So, lahat nagdi-decide kung ano yung nakakabuti sa lahat, then that's the decision to be made. Okay? So, that's collectivism class. So, we have heard examples of countries with generally individualistic cultures. Okay, number 1 is New Zealand, Germany, Austria, Greece, Poland, Italy, Belgium, Ireland, Spain, and Finland. So these are the countries with individualistic cultures. So next to individualistic, we have countries with generally collectivistic cultures. We have Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Indonesia, of course, Philippines, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Portugal. So that ends our discussion class for this module. So I hope na-enjoy natin ang buong discussion ng prelim natin. So magkakaroon tayo ng quiz for this prelim period. So prepare for a quiz. Okay? And I'll send din yung ating last activity, activity 5 for this prelim. So thank you and God bless.